Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you'll enjoy the Girl Dad Discussion podcast. I'm your host, Ernest James, and I believe the relationship between a daughter and her father is one of the most important relationships a young lady can have. And therefore, my mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by sharing the voices of girl dads to the world. So check out our podcast on every platform where podcasts can be listened to. And if you want to watch the podcast, check us out on our YouTube channel. Again, that's the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with your host, Ernest James. All right, welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I am your host, Ernest James, and I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you haven't already, make sure that you listen, like, subscribe, and share our podcast on all of our social media platforms. Also, make sure you guys are checking us out on our new YouTube channel. Let me bring that up. My computer has a little delay today, but make sure you guys are checking us out on our new YouTube channel, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network, where you will find the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, which you are listening to right now. But not only that, you'll also find our sister podcast, which is the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. On that podcast, I talk to other girl dads like myself in order to combat the narrative of the absent father and the fatherless daughter. And so I want to make sure that you guys check that out. Also, our product of the week, as you guys know, we are a self-sustained podcast, and the way that we stay on the air is by bringing you amazing products for you to purchase. And so our product of the week is our purpose journal, as well as our purpose planner, because I believe we ought to journal in order to be remember where we've been and where we are, as well as plan for our future. So you can get your copy of our purpose planner and purpose journal on Amazon. The links are in the descriptions of the podcast below. Also, there's other great information and opportunities in the descriptions as well. So you want to make sure that you're checking out descriptions. Again, make sure you guys like and subscribe to the podcast on our YouTube channel, as well as your listening platform, so that you don't miss an episode, because we have amazing episodes with amazing guests. And today is no different. Today, just like any other day, we are blessed with a guest, Mr. Michael. How you doing today?
How you doing, Ernest? I'm grateful to be here. And calling me amazing, it depends on the audience, you know, who you talk to about that. But yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on. Thank you for taking out the time to come in and share your story with us, because you could have been doing anything else with anyone else, but you're here with me and my listeners, and so we definitely appreciate it. So, Michael, do me a favor, introduce yourself to me a little more, and to my audience. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
Yeah, so my name is Michael Bugary. I'm from California, but now I live in Northeast Ohio. I'm currently a motivational speaker and an author of a book coming out called The Disease of Me. I'm a former Division I and professional athlete. I played baseball at the University of California, Berkeley, and with the Red Sox organization. And I'm also a recovering opiate addict and a brain cancer survivor. And so now I found new purpose in speaking and sharing my story, and to help others going through challenging times, to, you know, share my experience about how I got through it, and hopefully that it can help somebody else.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. definitely want to jump into that story. So let's go back. Let's actually go back even before the baseball days, right? Because I think that's
Yeah.
probably kind of where the interest of the story starts. But I'm always interested in finding out who you were before
Yeah.
that, right? Like who was
Yeah.
the original Michael, just growing up as a young kid with big dreams. Tell us a little bit about that story of your backstory of who you are, who you were, just coming up into even before the major leagues and things of that nature.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I came from a military family, and my family, traveled around a lot. And I think for me, that was part of the reason why felt like I never fit in. I was kind of like a
Mhm.
dorky kid. I like certain things, but I was also diagnosed with ADHD at a young age. So I was kind of a difficult child, and I was all over the place. And my parents found, I had good parents that tried everything to spark my interest. But from an early age though, my thinking was flawed because I just didn't understand why the other kids didn't think that I was as cool or as popular as I thought I was. And so, right, so I tried. I felt I call it now a God shaped hole, but I had a hole inside me, and I say my thinking was flawed. It's something I call the disease of me, because I only really ever cared about what I thought or how I felt or what I wanted. And at an early age, I really had this need for attention and validation, and, from other people, from outside of myself. And when I started playing baseball, I learned that the more better I performed, the more I got those things that I wanted. And baseball slowly started into a love for a game for me, but it evolved into an addiction because it became the source of getting the things that I needed. And so I was able to create an identity around baseball. So inside, I was really just full of fear and insecurity, but on the outside, I projected this image that I thought other people would want to see, and what they wanted to hear from me.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit because I know that I'm not an athlete, right? So I've never been an athlete, but I do know, especially being in the speaking space, because there are so many athletes that come out
Yeah,
after their sports career and they start to speak and share things that they didn't necessarily share during their career. And one of those things is that identity, being identified as an athlete. And so even with that, talk to us a little bit about that identity being connected to sports and being an athlete while you're in the sport, and then
yeah,
afterwards, because I know a lot of um, athletes struggle after their career because now they don't have that thing that they've identified with since a kid, to be in the focal point. Because like, all right, now my career is over. Now who am I without this thing that I've spent most of my life, chasing? So talk to us a little bit about your experience with that, and even if there's another uh athlete that's listening right now, something that can kind of help them in that transition of finding their true identity, which is much larger than the sport itself.
yeah, yeah. So that's a great question, and it was one question that I had to ask myself in my road to recovery, and when I went back to school to finish my degree. That's what I did my thesis on, was athletic identity. Why did I overemphasize my athletic identity over anything else? And in a simple way that I can put it is, like I was saying earlier, that I was wasn't getting that attention and validation. I had this entitlement where I thought that I was special and great, but I wasn't seeing it in the real world. It was just only
Mm.
this fantasy that I lived in. But I found, like, and with the other sports, you know, uh, I'm 6'4". I wasn't super tall in basketball, and I was kind of chubby. So in football, I was always put on the line, and I was put in these positions where I never really had the ball, or was never really in the spotlight. But in baseball, I'm left-handed. It gave me advantages, and I could pitch, and I could have all the attention right on me, and I love that. And then, and like I said, as I got better, I started to get those things, and then the more validation is from scouts and schools and all these things that I got, it just blew my head up into proportions. And when I went to see professional coaches, and I saw how they acted, I saw how people treated them, I saw the confidence and the swagger that they had, and I knew that's what I wanted. And it wasn't something that I had inside me, it was something that it wasn't organic, I had to create it. And by creating that, I think, there's a saying, fake it till you make it. But
Yeah.
I just learned to bury bury those insecurities so deep into this new character, and it became everything to me. Like I said, it really was an addiction, and alcohol and other things kind of contributed to it, but with alcohol, right, it didn't really help me on the field. Like, I don't know if you try to hit a 90-mile-an-hour fastball when you're drunk, it doesn't really work out too well. Or you got to balance when you're pitching, all kinds of things. But my point is that when it became that addiction, it became everything that I needed, right? I needed that. And so over time, the lies get a little bit easier. You can bury them. Then it becomes your truth, right? I lived in the truth that I created for myself. And then when I got hurt and when I lost it, I didn't have it anymore. See, I had this mindset that I was willing to die at 40 years old as long as I could play 10 years in the major leagues, because there was that feeling that if I just got there, I would get everything that I wanted, that I would stop feeling this way that I really felt about myself. And when I lost it, I didn't know what to do. I had no direction. And that's when opiates and painkillers became my solution. And because they worked, they helped me forget about everything. And I just fell into this deep depression and just being alone.
Yeah, I wanna talk a little bit about that too. That you just mentioned about that mindset of feeling like once you make it to the NFL, once you make it to the major leagues, once you make it to the NBA, like then everything else is going to come with it. You know what I mean? To give you this sense of purpose and fulfillment and all of that. And then you kind of get there and realize like, oh, this is not what I thought it was going to be. And I talked to entrepreneurs and successful entrepreneurs who have $1 million companies, and you hear the saying all the time, like money doesn't solve all your problems. And to people that don't have money, it's like, hey, I think it'll solve a lot of mine. And then they're always saying like, I wish you could get money, and then you'll realize that it doesn't fulfill you. You know what I mean? And so it's sort of that same thing, like you were saying, really feeling like once I make it to the league, whichever league it is, right? Once I make it and I make all this money and I get this notoriety and I get the popularity and the fame and all that, then all of my troubles will be over. When really, it's really kind of just start, because now you have access to all of these other things, in order to hide that insecurity, like you said, that you had. So, and that, how did that kind of play out with you? Because you get there and it's like, oh, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, that's a good question. Again, I think part of it too is the mindset. Some athletes, like, there's a really small percentage of Division I athletes that go play pro, right? And once you get to that level, what separates you now? It's not your talent, right? We're all really good. It's your mindset. And I think with the percentages so small of being like 3 to 5 years for a pro career to last, I think you have to get into this motion of lying to yourself that I'm going to be the one, and that creates an arrogance or a self-confidence that you have to have it, right? You have to have it. And going back what you said next to the, I call it's like the hedonic treadmill, they call it, right? It's no matter how much money I get, no matter how, it's never going to be enough. And for me, it wasn't necessarily about the money. The money stuff, great, money's important, but for me, that's trivial. For me, it was the attention. The attention from women, from people, from being oohed and on. That's what I needed. And I realized, because I got hurt before I ever really made it anywhere. I got hurt really early in my second season. But what I realize now is that it never would have been enough. The attention, the million people, whatever it would have been, it would have never been enough, because I would have kept needing more. I would have kept needing more and needing more and needing more. So ultimately, I would have done something that would have blown my career up anyway. Because it is an addiction. And like you said with the people about money, we chase this one thing. We think it's going to give us all the things that we want to, but it's not. Because what really gives you that satisfaction is your real self-worth that comes from within, right? Of doing the right things, of helping others, of just, being good into the world. That's where it becomes enough. Where am I enough? And I think that's what we put it all into, in our identity, into whatever it may be, a job, a sports, whatever it is. It's that feeling of we're just trying to be enough. And when reality, it was there all along for me.
Yeah. And I think that's amazing point that we all should have it, even in our everyday lives. And those of us who are not professional, sports, athletes and things of that nature, but that realization that you are enough in whatever it is that you're doing, wherever you're operating in your life, like you are enough in that space. You are enough to show up as your authentic self. You are enough to be just who you are and to be accepted for that, without the performance, without the accolades, without the spotlight. You're like, no, I'm still enough over here in the corner drinking my coffee by myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which
Yeah.
is kind of what I do,
Yeah.
and it's like
Yeah.
I'm still good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing thing for us to have. But I wanted to go a little bit more sort of on the other side of it, because you talked about, you know, getting to the point where you kind of lose the
Yeah.
I don't know if you lose the career or the career ended or whatever, and then now you're finding yourself in different spaces and experiencing different what is the word? Adversaries, not adversaries, but that's not the word I want to say, but challenges, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so, you find it you in this new space. So how did you begin to overcome some of those challenges and those new challenges, that you're facing now? Because again, once you separate from the career, which
Yeah.
that's been like your main focus the whole time, then we get to this identity crisis of, okay, who am I without the ball? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yeah.
so you got new challenges. So how did you kind of face those challenges and begin to overcome those?
Well, I didn't, to be honest with you, right? I didn't, and that's why I turned to painkillers, and I think I still I didn't know who I was when I got hurt, and I had all these people around me in my life, and that's when I talk to young athletes and I tell them, I say, raise your hand, how many people do you have in your life that aren't affiliated with your sport? Because pretty soon when you lose that sport, all of those people are going to go away too. And that's just the reality of it, right? There's a lot of people that are banking on your ship rising because it's going to rise their ship too. And I didn't really understand it. I thought these relationships were real, but how could I ever have a real relationship with anybody if I didn't have a real relationship with myself, right?
Right.
And so what I did was then I just started wearing masks, right? So I stayed around in the baseball arena with all these other people because that's where I got the most attention and respect. So I would coach or do lessons, and I'd wear this mask, and these people would see this version of me, and then I'd have this version of me somewhere else with my family, whatever it may be. And then behind all those masks was me, dying on the inside, using painkillers to get or amphetamines, Adderall to get through it, and I was just caught up in this addiction web of lies of denial where I was unwilling to face the truth, but I was just keeping up appearances. And slowly, as my addiction progressed, as I kept getting more and more bad news, that's when eventually it involves just harder drugs. And then when the harder drugs get into your life, like heroin, you don't have the capacity to live up those dual lives anymore. And then people start to take notice. And yeah, so to answer your question, I didn't handle it not till later on, and I just kept falling deeper and deeper and deeper until eventually into brain cancer.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So let's fast forward, right? Because you said
Yeah.
you didn't handle it at first until later on. So
Yeah.
how much later on was it when you kind of started to get a hold of it? And then what was your strength? What were the things that kind of helped you in that moment to start, getting on the other side of it?
Yeah, so there's a few. I call them turning points, right? I had a few of them. I had a few. Some of them were introspective, and some of them were spiritual in a sense too, right? And there's been a lot of people to help me along the way. I wish I can say that there was one thing. I got introduced to my therapy dog. He's a big story. He's a big part of my story. How I learned to recover. But I think the biggest thing was that moment when I call it a spiritual experience because that's what it was. Is a moment where I realized what kind of jerk I am, and it was just a moment of honesty and clarity where hey, I always knew that I had problems. I always knew that I was hurting people, but it went from my head to my heart. They say it's the longest 18 inches, right? From your head to your heart.
Right.
And where I really felt the damage and the hurt that I was doing on other people. And then with that honesty came a willingness to do things differently, to see myself in a certain way, and then just start to slow trudge to working myself back. But yeah, no, there's a lot of influences. I have a great family that was always been supportive of me of the times that I wasn't there. But there's also to this moment after my brain cancer and after I had really intense chemotherapy and radiation that just messed my whole nervous system up. I had a really rare type of tumor, and I was at a point of being physically, spiritually, and mentally broken. And I remember laying on my floor, I call it the limbo of agony. I was in too much pain to sit still, but I was in too much pain to move. Right. I just didn't know where else to do. And I faced a point in my life where I just, I either had to die, right, or give up or do something different. And I attribute that ego with baseball and sports that never allowed me to give up, and that's a big thing that what I gained from it. But that moment where it was so powerful, where I just decided to do something different. Hey, maybe you are wrong, you know.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to talk about, because you kind of said it, and I just want to kind of ask a little bit more about that, because you mentioned about the drug use and things of that
Yeah,
nature, and then you said that it kind of led to your
yeah,
brain cancer. So let's talk to me a little bit about how the drugs or whatever kind of added to the brain cancer, and then that
yeah,
whole experience of dealing with your health, especially as an athlete, dealing with your health and going through health issues, and how did that, just having that to work your way through that, how did that affect you also, as your inner person, and even finding your purpose through that situation?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I don't have 100% scientific proof, but I know
Mhm.
I know it's the reason. So in my desperation, it goes back to the identity, right? In my desperation to fix my arm and to come back, I bought human growth hormone and other anabolic steroids, from a not so uh, reputable, I'll say, source, right? And I
I
didn't
got it.
have any I didn't have any medical supervision, and I think I misused a lot of it, and then I stopped taking it abruptly when I got hurt. But that, I think that most likely caused my brain tumor, right? So as my addiction progressed, it wasn't like I had, hey, I recovered from my addiction and then all of a sudden now I got no. It was a slow transition downwards where that highlighted everything to it. And I'd like to say that having a lacrosse ball sized brain tumor and going through all that other stuff would have changed me, right? It would have changed the way I see the world. Maybe I got a second. No, I went right back into to using heroin again, because it was a solution for me, because I was in so much pain and I needed it. And and I like and right away, it took me a few years, to really see the gift that I was given and changing that perspective, because all those things, they were a gift. And I had to go through that spiritual and physical and mental break of just rock bottom for me to be able to go forward and to find purpose, because I mean it's just how I am.
Yeah, yeah, and I like what you just said, because you said it gave it allowed you to see the gift that you were giving,
Yeah,
right? And I think that's a awesome phrase, and I think it's a viewpoint that only people who have found their purpose are able to appreciate,
yeah,
right? Because we go through all these things, and I speak for myself with, going through my divorce and going through my depression and going through my suicidal ideations, and all of that, those things that, could perceive to be very negative and very hard on an individual. But once you find the purpose in it and you come out on the other side, you're quote unquote grateful
yeah,
for
yeah,
for those things. You're grateful for those challenges, because it's like, oh, I made it through it, number one. But number two, now it gives me this purpose in order to pour into others, in order to help others who may be in that situation, and even some that I may keep from going through that same thing that I went through.
yeah,
And so I think it's a phrase and a mindset that only people that have really found their purpose in life are able
yeah,
to appreciate. And so as we find our purpose, and as you begin to find your purpose, even get into the work that you are doing now as being a speaker and an author, we can talk a little bit more about your upcoming book too. How has your experiences showed up now as purpose, and how do you use that now to move forward and to help others?
yeah. That's great. You put it in a great way. And just to touch on that too, I think it's more. Yes, yes, you're absolutely right. It is finding that purpose. You feel that rejuvenation, right? But I think too, and I'm sure you can attest to this. Is I've been to a place where I never thought I would go. My mind, it took me to a bottom, to a part of my language, to a hell that 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 I never, it was just that I had to rebuild myself back from the ashes. And I think, as
Yeah.
personally, just from my experience, going through that fundamentally changed me and how I view the world. And I'm able to see all the adversities and all those bad things that I've been through as gifts that just build me back stronger. Right. Not that I'm built back big and invincible. I'm built back with scars all over me that you can see, but they make me stronger. And in a way, I think it's more beautiful. And so with the question you asked, I see all those experiences and the things that I've been through as just as ways to share and to help other people. And I do it in many different ways. One big way is with my therapy dog. We're a big part of university hospitals, and he's a therapy dog for the. Yeah, I originally went there to see the children at Rainbow Babies in Cleveland, and now we visit the cancer centers. And when you get in there, and they can see some of the cancer patients when they see me now and see how I look, and they hear my story about what I went through. I can just, we have these conversations where I'm in tears and they're in tears, and they can see that, not only can they, through my experience, that they can survive the worst thing that they're facing, but that they can possibly thrive too. And then I see it too with athletes and kids I help coach and things that I do. Hey, you know what? Maybe it's a good thing. I play baseball year round all the time, and I made it my whole life. Maybe you should play some other sports or take some breaks or do some things. And I can encourage it in that way. Or with addiction, I speak to addicts all the time and just share my story about how I went from top athletic glory just a few years to a family pariah at rock bottom. So I think there's all these ways, but the main way that I try to do it, Ernest, is through attraction rather than promotion. It's how I live my daily life, right? I have to change my mindset of not uh, why I am the way I am. Why I am the way I am is simple, right? I just like to get high and avoid my problems. That's just, it's that simple, right? And or then it goes into you get into the why me phase, not the why me, like why did all this bad stuff happen to me, but why was I spared, right? You see these, I go visit these kids with 5-year-old kids with brain cancer, and it's just it breaks my heart. But why am I the one that's been able to fully recover? And I can't get lost in that because that's back in me again. I have to go to that mindset now of what do I do about it? What do I do with the gift that I've been given? And I have to do that every day in my life, and how I wake up and how I interact with others and how I treat my family and how I make living amends to all the people that I've hurt because I can't say sorry anymore because my words don't mean anything. So how I have that purpose is just how I live, right? How I live every day.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And talk to us a little bit more, or should I say more? Talk to us about your book now, because now you're living this life definitely
Yeah.
different from how you were as a athlete. You're living this life, and you're uh, turn your vision more into service, right?
Yeah.
The service of others instead of looking for that spotlight for yourself. And so you're a speaker now, and also upcoming author. So tell us a little bit about the book.
Yeah. So the book is called The Disease of Me. It's how losing my professional baseball career, drug addiction, and brain cancer saved my life. And so I think the idea behind the book was, I'm just new into this motivational speaking world. I'm like, all right, I need to have a book, right? All these other guys have books, so I need to have a book. So that was my. I didn't intend to be an author, right? That wasn't my goal. But when I sat down and
Right.
started writing it, and I had done journaling and all these other. That's why that was cool. Your product of the week, the purpose journal. But I'd done writing and other things, to kind of help me. But when I started writing this book, it became such a healing process for me, and I poured my heart into it. And hey, I thought, now that I've written 350 pages and I'm all done, and now let's just get it published and kumbaya, right? But that's not how it works, right? So I have to. I'm going through editors, and I'm working on publishing process, and so I was hoping to have it by the end of the year, but I think it's going to take me a little bit longer than that because I want to make sure that I do it right. There's a lot of people and things in my story that I want to make sure that I'm not putting in harm's way or stuff. I just wanted to really be focused on me because it is a memoir, so to speak, but there's a lot of it's my path to self-discovery, really what it is. How I went from rock bottom to how I learned how to be comfortable with the flawed human being that I am.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Man, Michael, you got a amazing story, right? And I'm so glad you came on to share it with us today. Before we get out of here, I want you to leave us with a word of advice, inspiration, however you feel, and also with your social media handles and things of that nature, so we can find you and support you. I'll give you a couple seconds to think about that. To my listeners, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Make sure that you guys are checking us out on our website, thedealhealfulfill.org, which is our main website. It's going to be under construction soon, so because I want to really update it. It's kind of outdated. But you also can go to ernestjamesspeakslife.com. And that's ernestjamesspeakslife.com, which is my speaker's website, to have me to come out and be a speaker at your school or organization, or to facilitate a workshop. So, which is some of the things that I do. So make sure that you guys, again, going to dealhealfulfill.org, which is our main website, and the Ernest James Speaks Life.com website, in order to see what I'm doing as a speaker, and possibly have me come out to work with your organized school or organization. Also, make sure you guys go to ebooks by ejames.com in order to check out some of the ebooks that I have written. I have an ebook called From Males to Men, which is a male mentoring ebook for young boys. I have an ebook called The Core Four, which is the 4 core values that every daughter should get from her father, which is also a book that we talk about on the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, because I think it's very important for us as girl dads and fathers to make sure that we are pouring into our daughters correctly. And one of my favorite ebooks that I've written is called Forgiving Me, the 4-Step Guide to Self-Forgiveness. Definitely want to make sure that you guys check that one out. Again, that's ebooks by ejames.com. All of those ebooks can be found there. Also, our product, our inspirational t-shirt line, is also available at deal2healtees.com. That's deal, the number 2, healtees.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tee and be inspired all day. That is our tagline. So make sure you guys go to Deal to Heal Tees in order to check out our inspirational t-shirt lines, as well as our podcast merch, which is our t-shirts with our podcast logos on it. Make sure you guys check that out. And last but not least, over the last couple of years, I've been blessed to be a part of an organization called the Forgiveness Mission. And what we do, we have free virtual workshops every other month, right? And we talk about everything surrounding forgiveness, forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, forgiveness of the world, just everything surrounding forgiveness, because we think it is very important for us to find our way in order to forgive, in order to move forward in our lives. And so whenever you're listening to this podcast, either one just ended or there is one coming up. So you can go to forgivenessmission.com to sign up for our next free virtual workshop, or you can go to Eventbrite and look up forgiveness workshop sponsored by the Forgiveness Mission in order to sign up for that. It's absolutely free, but the information is priceless. So make sure you guys go check us out at forgivenessmission.com. So thank you guys for that. Michael, again, I want to say thank you for showing up. Thank you for sharing your story, man. I really appreciate having you. I want you to have the last word, so the floor is yours.
Okay. So yeah, you said the advice question, and I always don't know what to say when I get asked this, because I don't really feel like I'm qualified to give advice. Sure, I've gathered some wisdom, but with that said, right, I'll say 2 things. I think one is that our self-worth has to come from within. I think we live in a me-centric society with social media, and we can find these likes and all these things to help us feel good. But I think for me particularly, is that stuff is great, and I can get caught up in it too. But I only find my self-worth from within when I go out and show up and face the hard things, and I'm not afraid to fail, and I fail quite often, but I always learn something from it. So the best way for me to find that worth is to try to complete things and show up. And second thing is that if you're just feeling really down about yourself and caught up in your own head, just go do something, be of service to somebody else. Like do something nice for someone, or go help someone, and just see how it makes you feel and see how it transforms and gets you out of your own headspace. And then in terms of
yes.
my,
And
my stuff,
where's your social media handles where we can find it?
You can find me. My website is www.michaelbugary.com. Last name is spelled Bugary. That's for, if you want to see me as a speaker or just send me a message. I'm on Facebook, Michael Bugary, and on Instagram at M Bugary, where you can see some videos of my dogs. And I want to say to you, Ernest, we talked about our pets a little bit before. And if you ever make your way to Northeast Ohio, I have a big lake, and I got giant snapping turtles in there. And you can have one anytime you want.
Yeah. I appreciate that. To my audience, he's referring to. I told him we talk about pets before we started recording, and I have aquarium with fishing, and then I have another aquarium with 2 turtles. I love turtles for whatever reason. I don't even know why, but I've always loved turtles since I was little. So I definitely appreciate that. We got anything no better than that, man. Thank you so much, Michael, for coming on. Thank you to my listeners, for you guys for coming on one more time to listen to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Make sure that you like this episode, leave us a comment, and more importantly, subscribe and share with somebody else. And so that being said, until next time, you guys be blessed. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.